I can look back now and see that I've made quite a few mistakes in my business with my pricing. And so I want to dedicate this episode of the show to helping you with your pricing. Now, one of the topics that goes hand in hand with pricing is self-belief. Because when you're setting a price for an offer where the offer includes you, yeah, where you are selling your services, you're selling your knowledge, your expertise, your genius, whether you are selling an offer as a coach where you're, going through the experience with your client, or you're selling done for you where they're buying a service where you literally do the work for them and then hand it back, the same self-belief issues arise. Okay, I hear this all the time, and hands up, I have been through it too. Okay, so I've made a few notes in my notepad because there's quite a lot that I want to say on this topic. And by the end of this episode of the show, you will have hopefully a much better idea of whether or not you're pricing your services at the right level. Okay, that's my intention, that you'll be able to reflect on where you're at on the journey, even if you think in the long run you'd like to charge more. But I want you to feel comfortable with where you're at. Okay, so that's my intention. And I want you to just take a minute now to ask yourself, what's your intention? When you clicked on this episode to see, Rach is talking about pricing tips this week, what was it that was on your mind? What came up for you? Did you think, I'm going to listen to this because I want to increase my rates? Did you think, I want to listen to this because I think I'm charging too much? Did you think, oh, I need to listen to this because I'm always getting price objections? What do you really want to get out of this topic? Okay, because pricing and mindset are very closely linked. Pricing is not just a business strategy, it is definitely linked to how you feel about yourself. Okay, so I want to start with you reflecting on what came up for you when you saw that this episode of Becoming an Online Sales Queen, the podcast, the YouTube show, when you saw it was about pricing, what came up for you? And actually, just on the subject of us being here on YouTube, if you are not subscribed to the channel, I have just made a really big commitment to drop even more videos on my YouTube. Okay, so definitely, if you love business growth content, videos about how to help you grow on social media, how to develop group coaching offers, one-to-one offers, help you sell out a membership, help you build and sell courses. If you love content about that, then you really must subscribe to the show. Okay, so hit the subscribe bell for me. You will get notified every time I put out a new video. Okay. And also, I'd love you to share this with your friends. If you know that you've got a business bestie who also wants to get some support with pricing, get some support with business growth, with sales strategy, then please do share the show with them. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the meaty stuff, the really, really juicy stuff about pricing. Okay, so I'm going to start with a story. Some of you might not even believe this story, but I promise you it is true. When I first started my business, my number one niche that I used to support was law firms. I worked with a lot of law firms. Now, you might wonder, well, what do law firms need to know about selling? Well, they needed to know a lot because they offer free consultations. So they work for free to hear the client's problem and to give them, a rough idea of what the legal proceedings might look like, what they might involve. But they don't get paid unless they close the sale, right? So that free consultation is the same as, a discovery call in the coaching world. They would offer 30 minutes, 45 minutes, sometimes 60 minutes of free services. And that lawyer had to know how to close that sale, right? How to turn that into a contract. So I used to get hired by a lot of law firms, some of them really huge firms that covered the whole UK, some of them more like local firms that were down near me in the southwest of the UK. And so I used to work with a lot of these people, and they used to charge £300 to £500 an hour for their services. So they used to then hire my services. What did I use to charge them, right? Knowing that they were high ticket, legal services is a high ticket service. What did I use to charge them? Bearing in mind, I'd been in my corporate career for 17 years, very knowledgeable on sales, a lot of, accolades, accomplishments, awards even for my skills in sales and leadership. What did I used to charge them? 50 quid. I used to charge them £50. And in the back of my mind, I still had doubts that that was good value, that they would even book. And they did used to book. Of course, they used to book. My diary used to be filled with lawyers, you know? And sometimes I would go into one of the law firms and I'd have like 6 meetings back to back with different lawyers. I would listen into their calls. I would run workshops, you know, and I used to charge £50 an hour. And so the tips that I'm going to share with you in this episode come from a place of me too, right? They come from a place of understanding why you may or may not be charging the right price right now. Okay, I've been there. I've had all the imposter syndrome, all the self-doubt. I know it's not fun, right? Because the impact of that is that you start to resent your client. The impact of you undercharging is that you start to resent the clients that you're working with because you notice that you're working really hard. You notice that you're showing up giving. You notice how much value they're getting from your work. And because you're being underpaid through your own doing, but you notice that you're being underpaid, and so you start to resent it. And that's not fun in business, right? You never want to be in a position where you don't enjoy supporting your clients, you don't want to support your clients. You want to be dialing into calls, absolutely loving your clients. Sometimes on a Monday morning, when I'm about to dial into my mastermind call, I do ask myself, who's more excited, me or them? Because I'm genuinely excited to dial in and hear all their news and celebrate their wins and support them for the week ahead. So you definitely don't want to be in a position where you're resenting your clients and not enjoying your work. And underpricing, I'd say that's one of the biggest impacts of underpricing, okay? Not to mention all the damage that it does your own mindset and that feeling of low self-worth, low self-belief, even more imposter syndrome that comes to hold you back in other areas of your business. So pricing is a really big thing, and I'm coming at this from a place of me too, yeah? So I'm not preaching at you because I have definitely done this. Just going to glance down at my notes and make sure that I haven't missed anything out in the kind of context. I guess, yeah, there's one thing I haven't mentioned, and this is kind of one of the most common mistakes that I see, especially if you are fairly new in business. So maybe if you're in your first year, this is something that you might be doing with your pricing, is you might have looked at your old salary, your old 9 to 5 salary, what you were paid by the hour, and you might have just grabbed that figure and used that in your business to work out what your pricing should be. Yeah, so if you work out on your old salary that you were paid £20 an hour, £25 an hour, £30 an hour, that you would take that figure and just use that in your business. That is absolutely not the right way to do it, okay? So if that is what you've done, I want you to stop right now, yeah? That's your biggest takeaway from this episode, is to notice that you've made that error, know why it's an error, right? The reason it's a big error is because when you are selling your services in your business, you should be pricing for the outcome, pricing for the result. You're not pricing for the time. You're not adding up how many minutes you spend. You're not breaking down your week, your day, your hours, and charging for the time. The minute you go down the road of charging for the time, then you can never put your prices up, right? You can never put your prices up if you charge by time. Why? Because there's always 60 minutes in every hour. There's always 24 hours in every day, right? So if you go down the road of charging for your time, you can never increase your prices. And you don't want your client to think that they can just slide the scale up and down of how much they invest in your work by adding to the time or taking the time away, because it's not about the time, okay? It's not about the time. It's about the outcome. It's about the result. It's about the transformation. It's about what they get as a result of working with you, okay? So if you have taken your old corporate salary, your old hourly rate, I want you to stop doing that moving forward and ask yourself the question, what is the impact of my work? What does my work really allow my ideal client, my perfect fit client, what does my work allow them to do? And the best example I can give you for this is if I was able, and I'm not, by the way, so this is a completely made up analogy, but it really does get the point across. If I could teach you how to become a millionaire in a week, would I charge you, like, let's say that would take me 5 hours, right? 5 hours in the week. I would dial into a call with you 1 hour a day for 5 days. Takes me 5 hours to teach you how to become a millionaire. And at the end of that week, you would have £1 million. I would have spent 5 hours teaching you. What would be the best way to price that service? Would I price for the 5 hours I've given you? Or would I price for the fact that you've now got £1 million as a result of the work that I've done with you? Now, I wish I could teach you how to be a millionaire in 5 hours. If I could, I would be a billionaire, but it's not possible. But you get the point why this is a really good analogy. Because if I was going to be able to make you £1 million in a 5 hour program, I would charge you at least 100,000 for it. At least 100,000. That puts me on 20k an hour, right? And I would feel absolutely good about doing that because I price for the result, and so should you. So you would have £1 million, I would get paid £100,000, and you would therefore get a return on investment where you get to keep the 900,000. So you are in profit on that investment of 900k. Yeah, you've paid me 100k, you've kept 900k, you've got the £1 million, you've got a return on investment, everyone's a winner. Yeah, you've got a 10 times return on investment because you paid 100k, you've got a million. Yeah, whereas if I had taken the model of just charging you for 5 hours, I would never be able to inflate that because that 5 hour service would always be a 5 hour service. If anything, I would get quicker. I would get quicker at doing it. So I would be teaching you how to be a millionaire in 4 hours. So the service would get cheaper if I was charging by the hour. Yeah? Is this making sense? I hope so. So when you use that analogy, it's easy for you to follow the thought pattern that when you're pricing your services, you are not pricing for time, you're pricing for result. So that means the next part of this conundrum, yeah, your pricing strategy, is to get super clear on what is the result that you are providing. What is the result? What does your customer have? What can they be? What can they do? What do they have as a result of your service? Now, I hear girlies make mistakes with this all the time, okay? You price for the result, so you know that that's a thing. Maybe you've heard me talk about it before. So you know that you're pricing for the result, but when you are thinking about, well, what is that result? You aren't quite in the right arena. You're not in the right ballpark for what that result really is. And again, one of the best examples to make the point is a virtual assistant, right? So if you're a virtual assistant, you're going to love this example. A virtual assistant usually would say that you buy an hour package, a 5 hour package, a 10 hour package, a 20 hour package, yeah? So that blows my example out the water of don't charge by the hour, because as a VA, you usually do charge a retainer for a number of hours, yeah? And let's say it's a package, yeah? Somebody buys a package of 10 hours from you. Firstly, that customer would be of the understanding that they can inflate and reduce that package, yeah? So you want to be really firm with your boundaries and say, I do not do packages of less than 10 hours. So you cannot use 8. Yeah, now you might want to operate a carryover service. Yeah, so if they only use 8, do they get to carry over 2? I would recommend that you don't do that. If they don't use it, they lose it. Why? Because if people think that they can just carry over, you would end up with a month potentially where your 10-hour package customer thinks that they can get 30 hours of support from you. And the fact is, you may not have the capacity to do that. You may have other customers who have bought that capacity from you that you are committed to, that therefore you're not going to be able to give that customer that's carried over, you're not going to be able to support them, okay? So yes, it's going to look on paper like you are charging for your time, but I want you to see it as a package. It's a 10-hour package, and the result of what gets done in that 10 hours is what you're really selling. Yeah, so the result is, if you are helping them with event planning, their result is that they get their event planned. Yeah, but is that really the result? Yeah, if you're helping them with diary management, calendar management, and email inbox management, for example, typical admin skills, what's the result of that? Is it that they get their admin done, or is it that they get time back? Because what I would recommend to you is that when you are selling your services and pricing your services and showing up on social media and writing content and copy to sell your services, that you don't focus on selling the result of you will get your admin done. Because although that is a great result and we all love to have our admin done, me definitely, yeah, we all love to have our admin done, but is the bigger result something else? I think it is. The bigger result is that 10-hour package that that person has bought from you gives them 10 hours back. And in those 10 hours, they get to do something else. They don't have to do the admin because you've taken it off them. You've taken it off their hands. They don't have to worry about it. But what else do they get to do? It could be that they spend those 10 hours with their family. So the impact of your work isn't just you get your admin done, it's you get to spend your evenings with your partner and your family instead of doing your invoicing. You get to spend the weekend enjoying time with loved ones, lazy lunches with friends, whatever the thing is. You get to spend your time doing quality things with loved ones rather than catching up on your business admin because you ran out of time last week. So the result is, yes, they get their admin done, but you need to think about the bigger impact. What's the bigger impact of the result that you are selling? So my question for you is, I've just given you a virtual assistant example. If you're a coach, if you're a mentor, if you are a social media manager, what are you really selling? What are you really, really selling? What sits behind the result that somebody gets when they come to work with you? So when you're pricing, you have to think about that. Yeah, like you hear me talk all the time about storytelling content. If you were going to tell a story about, oh, imagine it, I've done all your admin for you. Yeah, I'm sure you can paint some really good pictures with a story like that, but you can paint some even more powerful pictures with a story of you getting to go to sports day because I'm doing your admin for you, or you getting to go and have date night with your partner that you haven't had for 6 months, and he rolls your eyes every time you say you can't do anything because you're doing your admin. Yeah, and you feel it's putting a strain on your relationship. Or your son is asking you, Mummy, why are you always on your phone? Why are you not having dinner with us tonight, Mummy? Yeah, like you can paint a much more powerful picture, a much more activating piece of content when you sell the real impact of what you do. Okay. So from a pricing strategy point of view, we're not going to charge the hourly rate from our old job. We are not going to price for the hours. We're going to price for the result. Yeah. So just to summarize like what we've said, I want you to, or, give you some actions. I want you to just take a minute to think about how are you currently pricing? How would you like to price? And what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do differently? Okay. Now, the one other thing that I will just finish up with is that the other thing that you are charging for is proximity. So this episode today was inspired by a scenario that happened for me a little while ago where I was in London. I was delivering a full day workshop that people had paid £247 to be at. Yeah, that included them having 7 hours with me, lunch. I bought lunch, I hired us a room, I was sharing my screen, I was walking them through the process of building a lazy girl sales funnel. Okay. And in the room that day, a pricing question came up. In fact, a few pricing questions came up about, how do I price this particular offer? And I gave the example of the day that we were on and said, if you think about it, girls, right, what you're really pricing is for the result and for the proximity. Yeah, how close somebody gets to you, how much of you they actually get, not the hours, but how deep and meaningful the work is. Yeah, like do they get you on Slack? Do they get you in a WhatsApp group? Like do they get you on a one-to-one call every week? How much proximity do they get to you, okay? And the example I gave was, girls, if you think about it, you have invested £247 today to be here with me, and you could have bought the course for £22 because I sell this as an online course for £22. And instead of paying £22, you decided to invest more than 10 times that. Why did you do that? Because of proximity. Okay, so I want you to remember with your pricing, people pay extra for speed, people pay extra for certainty. Yeah, so yes, they knew that I was selling that course for £22 and that they could have sat at home in their pajamas learning my Lazy Girl sales funnel system at home for £22. But instead of that, they paid $247, more than 10 times the amount, to be in a room with me where I was walking them through the exact same content. There was no extra, well, apart from when they asked me questions and I was obviously elaborating, but they paid more than 10 times the amount to be in a room with me where I had my screen projected up onto a big screen in the room where I was walking them through step by step. This is the content we build. This is how we go into ManyChat. This is what I would put in ManyChat. This is what happens if the ManyChat, isn't firing, isn't working, if the automation isn't happening. I walked them through it step by step. And that was worth more than 10 times the amount, okay? So think about it with your pricing. Yes, you want to think about the result, but you also want to think about the proximity. And when you're planning your offers and your business model, you're thinking about how much of you they get. So it could be that you have one price for one offer that, let's say, could be a power hour, where they work with you for 1 hour on a Zoom call, working on a strategy or a personal plan to get them a specific result. But that very same plan is something that you deliver across a 6-week cohort group coaching program. You use the same content. It's still you. You're still the one. It's still your strategy, your framework. You're still sharing it. But instead of doing it in a 1-hour personal session, you're now selling it and packaging it up over a 6-week period. Now, those two things, they would be charged at different prices, even though the result is the same. The result is you get a plan to achieve XYZ result, whatever that is. Yeah, so their outcome is that they get your plan, your framework, your system. That's what they get. But they can choose to get that in 1 hour with you or 6 hours in a group. That would not be priced the same. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Summary: we're not charging your old hourly rate, that's gone. We're charging your offers based on result and proximity. Okay, now if you've got any questions about this at all, my DMs are always open. You know they are. I think I say this at the end of every episode. You're probably bored of me saying it, but if you've got questions about pricing, if you want some support with pricing, you want to just get my opinion on a price for one of your offers, drop into my Instagram DMs. The link to my Instagram will be below this video, below the show notes on Spotify and whatever platform you are listening to the show on. If you've got any questions, do not hesitate, okay? So that is it for this week. I will see you next week. We are going to have a birthday celebration episode because we've got a week where the episode actually falls on my birthday. So we're going to be having some birthday offers, some birthday celebrations. It is my 9th business birthday and that's feeling super, super exciting for me. So yeah, stay tuned for the birthday episode. And if you have been thinking about working with me and you want to grab one of the birthday offers, this would be a great time. So subscribe to the channel, hit like, share it with all your friends, write me a review on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts if you can. I would love it. If you were loving the show, please do share it. Okay, so I'll see you next time.